All right, let's talk about Pattaya, Thailand. And I want you to forget everything you think you know. Today, we're digging into a pretty wild trend, how a wave of foreigners are skipping the tourist traps and are actually building serious wealth in one of Southeast Asia's most famous cities.
So let's just get right to it. Getting rich in Pattaya? When you picture the city, you're probably thinking beaches, maybe some crazy nightlife, or, a chill place to retire. But a place to make a fortune? It sounds kind of unlikely, doesn't it? Yeah, that's exactly what we thought too.
But then, you start hearing things like this. People showing up, expecting this retiree trap, and instead they stumble into this booming economy. I mean, we're talking about expats banking over $9,000 a month. A number like that, well, it makes you look a little closer. And honestly, it's what kicked off this whole investigation.
And this right here is where things get really interesting. On one hand, you have the average local salary, which is under $700 a month. But on the other hand, a successful foreign entrepreneur can pull in more than 10 times that. This huge gap just begs the question, where is all that money even coming from?
To really get this, you have to understand what makes the city tick. So our first move was super simple. We just decided to follow the money. And our first clue was just the sheer volume of people. Every single year, 24 million visitors pour into this region. And trust me, they don't come empty-handed.
They bring with them a staggering 260 billion Thai baht in tourism money. And just to put that into perspective for you, that's over 7.3 billion US dollars. This is not just a town. It's a massive, multi-billion-dollar economic engine that runs almost completely on tourism.
So where does that $7.3 billion actually go? Well, it floods directly into this ecosystem. Every single one of those tourists needs a place to sleep, something to eat, and stuff to do. And that creates this constant, super high-demand environment for any business that can meet those needs.
Okay, so that's the why, this giant tourism economy. But now for the really interesting part, the how. What is the actual blueprint that foreigners are using to tap into this river of cash and make those kinds of profits?
And this, right here, is the magic equation. On one side, you have an incredibly low cost of living. Seriously, some expats live very comfortably on less than $1,000 a month. But on the other side, you've got the potential to earn nearly 10 times that amount. For an entrepreneur, this is the absolute dream scenario.
And here it is, this is basically the playbook, with the hard numbers. Just look at the monthly net profit for businesses that are aimed squarely at tourists. A simple coffee shop can pull in up to 300,000 baht a month. A well-run restaurant, even more. The key thing to see here is that the entry costs are pretty low compared to the massive potential for profit.
But hey, maybe running a business isn't your thing. There's another path, a more passive one, property. See, Thai law actually allows foreigners to own condominiums outright. And with millions of tourists needing a place to stay, a single condo can become a little income-generating machine, just churning out a steady stream of rental cash.
Now, it's really easy to hear those profit numbers and start packing your bags. But hold on, this is no risk-free paradise. For every success story, there are plenty of pitfalls. So it is definitely time for a reality check.
First off, you gotta know the rules of the game. As a foreigner, you're legally limited to 49% ownership in most Thai companies. That means finding a trustworthy local partner isn't just a good idea, it's a legal requirement. On top of that, you've got this complex web of visas and work permits. It's a bureaucratic challenge where one tiny mistake can shut your whole operation down.
Then you've got this mental trap that people call holiday mode. Expats arrive, they fall in love with the lifestyle, and they start treating their business like a side project instead of a real job. They overspend, they totally underestimate the work involved, and they fail. The lesson is simple. This is a business venture, not a permanent vacation. And all of that brings us to the single biggest risk, the one thing that this entire opportunity is built on. The city's whole economic model is built on one pretty fragile foundation, a constant flow of international tourists. This pretty much shows you the economy's core weakness. When tourism is normal, business is booming. But when some global event comes along and disrupts travel, that river of cash can slow to a trickle. And that threatens every single business we've talked about. It's a high-reward system for sure, but it's built on some really high-stakes risk. So, after following the money, looking at the blueprint, and getting a dose to that reality check, what's our final verdict? Is this a genuine golden opportunity, or is it just a dangerous illusion? Here's what we think. You have to see Pattaya not as a beach town, but as a powerful economic machine. It is expertly designed to do one thing: convert tourists into cash flow for the local economy. The opportunities for wealth are very real, but they only exist because this machine is so ruthlessly effective.
And that leaves us with the final question. The numbers show there's a clear blueprint for wealth here, built on a foundation of massive tourism. But the risks, both the personal ones and the big systemic ones, are just as clear. So, is it a calculated opportunity? Or is it a high-stakes gamble? The answer, it seems, depends entirely on who's willing to play the game.